PlayStation has a lot of franchises they are doing nothing with. Wipeout, Uncharted, Killzone, MotorStorm, Resistance, and that is just the tip of the iceberg. Times have changed, PlayStation has evolved, studios have closed, and Sony's developers have moved on to different games, new franchises, and have taken on new directions. However, there is some hope. We talked previously on how many Japan studio games like Everybody's Golf, Freedom Wars, and Patapon are returning thanks to a partnership between Sony and Bandai Namco. Sony seems to be licensing out some of their abandoned IPs, notably their Japan studio titles, and it's probably safe to say that we can expect more in the future. But it doesn't stop there, because back in March 2025, it was announced that Sony Interactive Entertainment and developer People Can Fly have entered a partnership for a new video game codenamed Project Delta. While it is still pretty early, we do know one crucial detail. This project is based on existing Sony IP, which means a game long forgotten is going to see its resurrection. And if you enjoy content like this and content not like this, consider liking and subscribing. Now, who is People Can Fly? What kind of game developer are they? What's their history? And what games have they made in the past? Maybe diving into their legacy will give us some indication on the possible PlayStation franchise they may be working on. So People Can Fly is a Polish video game developer formed in 2002. Their first game would be 2004's Painkiller, a first-person shooter released for the Xbox and PC to critical success. Following this, a partnership with THQ resulted in a canceled game called Come Midnight. A year and a half of work on a proprietary game engine and withheld payments almost left the studio struggling financially. Thankfully, connections to the vice president of Epic Games would see an arrangement of having People Can Fly working on a PC port of Gears of War in 2007. This would lead to Epic Games acquiring a majority stake in the developer that same year. This resulted in further collaborations between the two. 2011's Bulletstorm, another first-person shooter, and 2013's Gears of War Judgment, a spin-off taking place before the first game. During this time, People Can Fly increased the number of staff they had, and Epic Games would fully acquire the studio in 2012, later rebranding them to Epic Games Poland in late 2013. Behind the scenes, the studio would be limited in their creative freedom, working on the projects of others and not so much on those of their own, which resulted in the studio regaining independence in 2015 and returning to their original name of People Can Fly. Since then, they've had some VR games including Green Hell VR and Bulletstorm VR, and in 2021 released Outriders with Square Enix. And currently, as of this video, People Can Fly have at least 7 games in development, including Project Delta for Sony, Gears of War E-Day in collaboration with the Coalition, and Project Gemini, another game published by Square Enix due in 2026. So with all that said, it's clear that People Can Fly have a passion for first-person action shooters. Not entirely a guarantee that this PlayStation game will be a first-person shooter, but with majority of their library being in first-person, it's probably a safe bet. I can only think of 3 PlayStation franchises that fit the type of games People Can Fly make. Definitely Killzone and Resistance, but I also see SOCOM being an option, even though that's in third person. I've seen people talk about Warhawk, at least Warhawk as it was on the PlayStation 3. The online aspect I can see, but I just don't see them working on this. I feel like if People Can Fly were given this opportunity, then it just has to be one that people are going to easily gravitate to. And while Warhawk has its fans, it was never as big as these other games. But what if we take a moment and overanalyze the Delta part in Project Delta? There's a couple of things we can take away from this. In the Greek alphabet, Delta is the 4th letter. Resistance has 3 main games. Could Project Delta signify Resistance 4? There were times Insomniac Games wanted to make Resistance 4, but these plans never happened. and with them moving on to Spider-Man and Wolverine, along with Ratchet and Clank, the chances of them returning to Resistance feel slim to none. Delta is also a code word representing the letter D when used over the radio, and a lot of the time is associated with military use. So what about SOCOM? The last game we had was all the way back in 2011 with PlayStation 3's SOCOM 4 US Navy SEALs. In this case, Sony shut down SOCOM's main developer, Zipper Interactive, back in 2012, though they were planning on a new SOCOM game for the PlayStation 4 before this happened. But I question SOCOM's appeal in the current market. Maybe SOCOM could have a complete reinvention, something that attempts to go up against Call of Duty but does it in its own way. Whether we see this in third person or in first person, a new SOCOM could have an edge on Call of Duty with a more grounded tactical approach, and boost this with huge online capabilities, and you might have a winner. For Resistance and Killzone, both of those stories are pretty much wrapped up. Resistance 3 served as a conclusion for humanity's fight against the Chimera, and Killzone Shadowfall acted as an epilogue of sorts, with the characters trying to avoid another major war breaking out. So People Can Fly could continue these stories in a soft reboot kind of way, sorta like 2018's God of War. It did something drastic but continued the narrative years later. But both of these franchises are also in places where they could have a full reboot and completely start from scratch. Whether this game is late in the PlayStation 5's life cycle or a PlayStation 6 game, a reboot could be appealing for a new generation of players. If anything, I see Killzone having the best chance at returning out of any of these games. It's more well known, it had a longer lifespan, Guerrilla Games still exists, and while they clearly have moved on to Horizon, they may be of some assistance when it comes to the lore and what's expected of a Killzone game. While Killzone could never amount to the levels of success Call of Duty has had, it could be Sony's Call of Duty. Have a single player story, maybe include co-op, add level replayability, challenges, and collectibles to find, support the game with further story content, and then on the multiplayer side, have different modes while also being a live service game of sorts. Seasons of new updates with new maps, new and limited time modes, new weapons and skins, anything and everything to keep players coming. Sony has clearly struggled on the live service front, but bringing in a franchise that is more known and a favorite among fans would likely do Sony, the developer, and the game wonders. Or maybe they'll surprise us all with a new MAG game. That was also from Zipper Interactive. You can't play it these days since the servers were shut down, but this was a PlayStation 3 game that was ahead of its time. But after seeing all these Japan Studio games returning, I'm learning that anything is possible, and the PlayStation many of us loved could be returning in a new form. I love the idea of these older PlayStation franchises finally making some sort of comeback. Whether it's Killzone or Resistance or something entirely different, just hearing about a developer working on existing Sony IP is exciting in itself. A fresh take from a new developer could result in something amazing, and I hope it does whenever it's ready. And hopefully this game sees a release because you never know what could happen. So what do we think? What PlayStation game do you think People Can Fly is bringing back? Could it be Killzone, Resistance, or SOCOM? Or do you think it's something completely different? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell to be notified about future content. And if you enjoyed this, check out this previous video on all the Japan Studio games making a comeback. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.